It is March 9th, 2000. You are sitting in a beige cubicle under buzzing fluorescent lights. On your desk, a heavy CRT monitor is glowing. You aren't working, you're hitting refresh. A stock ticker crawls across the bottom of the screen. Green. Everything is green. Your neighbor, the guy who mows his lawn at 6 a.m., just told you he made your annual salary in a week. He bought shares in a company that sells dog food online. They don't have a warehouse. They don't have profits. They barely have a website. But the chart only goes up. You feel it in your chest, the fear of missing out. You pick up the phone, you call your broker, you liquidate your savings, you buy the top, and for exactly 24 hours, you feel like a genius. Then the Nasdaq opens on March 10th. The red line appears, and it doesn't stop falling for 2 years. $5 trillion of wealth, vaporized. The investors were wiped out. But here is the strange part. The internet didn't die. In fact, it was just getting started. We look back at the dot-com bubble and laugh. We think it was mass stupidity. We think we are smarter now. We aren't. Because the mechanism that caused the crash wasn't stupidity. It was a change in the rules of math. For 100 years, a company's value was based on one thing: profit. How much cash do you generate? In 1999, Wall Street changed the formula. They stopped looking at net income and started looking at eyeballs. The theory was simple: get big fast. Capture the market share first, figure out how to make money later. This created a perverse incentive. If you made a profit, you were seen as not growing fast enough. So, companies burned cash on purpose. Super Bowl ads, lavish parties, free shipping on items that cost $20 to deliver. They were selling dollar bills for 80 cents, hoping to make it up on volume. This works as long as the cheap money keeps flowing. It's a game of musical chairs played with venture capital, but math is stubborn. Eventually, the music stops. When the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, the cheap money dried up. The burn rate became a death sentence. But why did this happen? Was it just greed? Or was it something deeper, a necessary sacrifice? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. To understand 2000, you have to look at England in 1845. The railway mania. A new technology arrives that promises to shrink the world. The steam engine. Just like the internet, the hype was real. Everyone from the aristocracy to the working class bought railway shares. Companies were formed overnight. They planned lines that went from nowhere to nowhere. When the bubble burst in 1846, families were ruined. The middle class was hollowed out. The stock certificates became worthless paper. But look at the map of Britain today. The tracks remained. The tunnels were dug. The bridges were built. The investors lost everything, but the infrastructure survived. The public got a transportation network for free, paid for by the losses of the speculators. This is the brutal truth of technological revolutions. They require massive amounts of capital to get started. More capital than any government is willing to spend, so the market invents a bubble. The bubble seduces you with greed. It tricks you into funding the construction of the future. And when the construction is done, the bubble pops, and the system keeps the assets while you keep the receipt. Back to the year 2000. When the dot-coms vanished, they left something behind. Thousands of miles of fiber optic cable. Millions of servers. Massive data centers. Companies like Global Crossing spent billions laying cable across the Atlantic. They went bankrupt doing it. But the cable didn't disappear. It was sold for pennies on the dollar to the next generation of companies. This is called dark fiber, unlit, unused capacity waiting for a purpose. This glut of cheap infrastructure is exactly what made the modern internet possible. Without the dot-com bubble, there is no YouTube. There is no Netflix. Streaming video requires massive bandwidth. If that bandwidth had to be built at cost, your subscription would be $500 a month. Instead, it was built by the hysteria of 1999 investors and picked up for cheap by the survivors. Amazon survived because it had infrastructure. Google survived because it had utility. The companies that died were just the financial fuel. They burned up so the engine could start. It's a wealth transfer, from the impatient to the patient, from the speculator to the builder. Why does this matter to you right now? Because we are watching the sequel. Look at the headlines. Artificial intelligence. Trillions of dollars in valuation. Companies are spending billions on chips and data centers, rushing to build the new railway. Just like 1999, revenue is secondary to capability. Just like 1999, everyone is terrified of being left behind. We are likely in the infrastructure phase of the AI revolution. And if history holds, a lot of these companies will go to zero. But the hardware, the data centers, the models, they will stay. The question is, are you investing in the technology, or are you donating your wealth to build it? How do you survive a technological bubble? You have to understand the difference between the tool and the stock. In 2000, the people who bought the stock of the internet lost. The people who learned to use the internet won. The real value wasn't in owning pets, It was in realizing that e-commerce would destroy retail, while day traders were jumping out of windows, figuratively speaking. The smart money was learning how to code. They were positioning themselves to use the cheap infrastructure that the crash would leave behind. Today, don't just look at the ticker symbol, look at the utility. If the bubble bursts tomorrow, what remains useful? The companies with high debt and low utility will vanish. The real assets, energy, compute, data, will be sold to the survivors. Your job is not to guess the top. Your job is to be waiting at the bottom with a plan. So here is your briefing. The standard procedure for navigating a mania. First, identify the Capex cycle. When companies are spending billions with no immediate return, you are in the build phase. This phase is volatile. It is dangerous. Do not leverage your life savings on a sure thing. Second, watch the unit economics. Does the business make money on every sale, or do they lose money? If they lose money on every customer, they are on a timer. When the interest rates rise, the timer hits zero. Third, invest in yourself, not just the market. The greatest asset in 2001 wasn't gold. It was the ability to build a website. The greatest asset in the next crash won't be Nvidia stock. It will be the ability to leverage AI to do the work of 10 men. The tool is free. The infrastructure is being subsidized by speculators. Use it. Don't be the fuel, be the engine. The dot-com crash was a tragedy for individuals, but a triumph for civilization. It was a harsh reminder that the market is not a machine for making you rich. The market is a mechanism for allocating capital efficiently. Sometimes, efficient means destroying the old to build the new. The investors of 1999 paid for the high-speed world we live in today. We owe them a debt of gratitude, but let their empty bank accounts be a warning. When the crowd is running toward the cliff, claiming they can fly, it is usually better to stand back and wait for gravity to do its work. We are seeing the exact same patterns form today in new sectors: the hype, the spending, the denial. So I want to ask you a question. Look at the AI boom happening right now. Do you think we are building the future? Or are we just pumping another bubble that is destined to burst? Let me know in the comments. I read them. If this video gave you clarity, hit subscribe. The pattern is repeating, and I'll help you listen.